Following program has adult language and plenty of spoilers. Listener be advised.
Fantastic Four. Spider-Man, Iron Man, Spider-Woman.
Welcome to Marvel Superhero Podcast. I'm William Machine, and with me is
Mr. Fix-It.
and
Yellow Frank.
and today we're going to talk about Fantastic Four's 52 and 53, the first appearance of the Black Panther. Our issues begin with the Fantastic Four taking a ride in a very interesting Kirby-esque car, right? Soaring.
Well, actually, what it starts with is this splash page of this weird-looking, freaky-deaky Black Panther. Somewhat contorted, and his face is
and he's like 20 feet
misalignment.
tall.
He looks inhuman, and he's hovering above the Fantastic Four.
So-
and then we go to the little weird spaceship.
So yeah, they're flying around this little weird spaceship thing, and of course you think that Mr. Fantastic built this thing. Quickly, Mr. Fantastic corrects you and says, "No, I did not build this. It was given to us by an African chieftain called the Black Panther, given to them as a good faith offering, right, for them to come be guests of the Black Panther in Wakanda."
And he's got some aide that he sent to convey this message, and he's a really cool-looking dude. He's got a squiggly handlebar mustache.
Fantastic Four accept the offer of, yes, we're going to go to Africa. He pulls out this device. He sets it on the ground, and then he puts this headdress over, like, this mechanical thing on his head, and he uses cosmic waves that blanket the Earth to make a phone call. This is a cell phone.
Yep, pretty much.
And that is a Bluetooth headset that he put over his dome to make the phone call, which I thought was kind of funny. They're like, what is this futuristic technology?
Yeah, because there was this time when you had things called ground lines, and they had to be connected to walls, which had to be connected to cables. International calls required a number of human operators to make those connections. It was crazy times.
Like Murphy Brown was in all these commercials trying to tell you that Sprint was cheaper than everybody else.
What's a Murphy Brown?
I know.
Is that like some sort of sexual technique?
Oh my god.
Like a Cleveland steamer?
Oh my god. Yeah, you had a Cleveland steamer and a Murphy Brown? Is that
Hell of a
an
night.
Urban
Hell of a
Dictionary?
night.
It's a subtle chocolatey variation on smothering.
No, we're gonna move on from that.
Chocolate champagne?
No, we're gonna move on from that. They have to swing by and pick up Johnny Storm because he's in college, and one of his roommates is wasted and out cold sleeping by the name of Wyatt Wingfoot.
They don't actually say he's wasted. They just
he's wasted.
He slept through the Fantastic Four, crashing into the room.
Thing walked in.
Thing walks in, picks up Johnny Storm's chair and yells, "Surprise!" And Johnny Storm's yelling, "Holy Hannah!" And the guy sleeps through all the shit because he's
Wasted.
wasted.
And not just wasted. White boy wasted.
Well, actually, he's a Native American.
Because they brought a straight up slur later on. Talking about his red skin heritage or something like that?
Firewater, you're to blame. And in the meantime, we flash back over to Wakanda. And what's cool about Wakanda is everybody's running around in dashikis and shit. And this is contrasted against them having sophisticated machinery. There's this giant panther statue that with the turn of a lever rises up and reveals a complex underground lair.
Yeah, it is actually pretty cool shit. I dig the contrast of all the Kirby machines with the jungle stuff.
It's a nicely designed statue, too.
Anyway, so the whole time they're kind of foreshadowing the Black Panther, and T'Challa keeps saying that they're going to have this, we're going to greet the Fantastic Four like they've never been greeted before.
Well, with the greatest hunt ever.
Right, so they can come witness the greatest hunt ever.
And the guy that invited him even told him that. We're going to have a great hunt on your honor.
Yeah, and then
Guess
he's
what,
like,
sucker?
then he was like, snickering, and they're like, well, this guy seems like a good time. And so, of course, as they're flying, they're all... Okay, so anyway, they pick up Johnny Storm, they pick up White Wingfoot, they fly in this new super cool spaceship they got from...
It rides on magnetic waves.
Yeah.
And by the way, White's still asleep.
Yeah, White is still asleep in the stupid... Yeah. Anyway, so...
And it's worth pointing out, too, that Ben Grimm, who was a member of the Fantastic Four specifically because he was an Air Force pilot, is given motion sickness because this thing can corner and move so swiftly.
When they're almost to Wakanda, Reed Richards even says, you know what, man, I'm starting to get a weird feeling about this, but I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to trip anybody out, just in case I'm wrong.
Specifically his wife.
Yeah. They land. Instantly, Black Panther starts whipping everybody's asses. The little escort they had.
He went on Liam Neeson on him.
He drops down...
through the floor.
Through the floor. bye, and then what?
Well, let's read this line, too. You waste your time, Johnny Storm. Nothing can help any of you now. Those electronic bolts have caused a chain reaction in the Thing's blood cells, which will weaken him for 5 minutes, and that is all the time the Black Panther shall need. 'Twas I who invited you for the hunt, but I neglected to tell you one thing. It is you who shall be hunted. And then he does a fucking cheerleader split that's semi-erotic. He spreads his shit like no woman I've ever seen before.
No, you're ruining the whole podcast.
He's able to kick both Johnny Storm and the Thing off their feet with one powerful pose.
Anyway, so as he's fighting them,
He's limber.
As he's fighting them, you realize that he diverts the Human Torch into this asbestos room that's fireproof, and then he drains all the oxygen out of it or whatever to put the fire out, shit like that. So he's come up with a way to disable each
one
member of the
individually.
Fantastic Four.
And most importantly, he takes out Johnny Storm, potentially the most powerful member, but obviously the dumbest member and the easiest to lead into a trap.
Well, the Thing.
No, Johnny's dumber than the Thing. I know he's in college, but he's a frat boy.
Well, I will say, though, the Thing got twice in this. First, he got caught by getting electrocuted, and then later on, he's like, oh, what's this pool of water here? I'm going to drink from it. And he starts drinking it, and that saps his energy again.
He actually said he was just washing his face, so I guess it absorbed through the rock.
So then we get to the Invisible Woman, who's invisible, obviously, and she's like, oh, he can't find me, but Black Panther has...
Enhanced senses, so first he
Hearing.
can hear her breathing, and then when she's clever enough to try to hide behind some loud machinery, he can smell her. A bunch of his troops come out from behind these hidden partitions with these laser rifles, and they shoot 3 members of the Fantastic Four, the ones who aren't dumbass Human Torch, and it causes a polarizing effect where they all have to fly away from each other. So that way he can separate and stalk them individually.
Right, it reverses all their magnetism to keep them apart from each other, so they can't come up with a plan, because they're all scattered about, right?
Yeah.
Which is what makes the Fantastic Four powerful. Even in this, you can kind of see where they're trying to coordinate a plan and shit.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the first thing that, T'Challa's like, nope, we're gonna get you guys apart. How are we gonna do that? Magnetism.
It's cool too because in that very first splash page, you see Black Panther's hands, and he's got these little circles in the palm. So you know he's got some kind of cool high-tech trickery going on there. And when he has to go after the Invisible Woman, apparently at this time she couldn't be invisible and project her force field creations at the same time. So he waits until she starts to turn visible, and he leaps at her so that he becomes encircled in her force field, and then he gasses her with this jets that are in his fingertips. It looks fucking creepy as shit. He's so spooky looking because he's mostly a silhouette. It's shot. There's bits of gray that highlight the darkness, but then he has these fucking freaky ass, creepy stalker eyes that he's glaring at these people with while he's taking them out one by one.
He goes after Mr. Fantastic.
Well, don't forget, he knocked out the Thing first. He managed to trick him into freezing himself on some machinery.
Yeah, trash the Thing.
And he was straight up punch fighting the Thing because he managed to weaken the Thing so much that he could just karate chop his fucking rock ass.
Yeah, and the Thing couldn't lay hand on him. I think he did get one punch on him, but other than that, he couldn't. So then he goes after Mr. Fantastic, he cuts the lights, right? So Mr. Fantastic can't really see what he's doing.
Mm-hmm. And he tried to lasso him with his arm.
Well, that's all he can do. So then all of a sudden the lights come back on, and he's got these machines with like titanium handcuffs that have grabbed onto his arm so he can't move.
And literally they're handcuffs. They're like arms with hands that have seized Reed Richards.
At that point he's whipped all their asses, but what he didn't take into account for was our good friend Wyatt Wingfoot that had tagged along, was able to decipher where Johnny Storm was and releases Johnny Storm, who comes out as Human Torch, frees Mr. Fantastic, and change
His
it.
Fantastic Five code name is Injun Sue because this motherfucker is doing nothing but unraveling this entire plan as a convenience and to show that Native Americans are badasses too. Because he's doing shit like laying his head on the ground and hearing rumblings and stuff. It's reverse racism. They're trying to do positive stereotypes, but it's still working with stereotypes.
Yeah, it's definitely offensive, but at the same time he does save all their asses.
They really look like chumps when Wyatt Wingfoot is the guy who has to come in and save them.
Well, he was the variable that Black Panther never...
He was the variable. That was the whole point.
Yeah.
That the Black Panther can
calculate everything.
He can plan for everything. He can get you to walk straight up into his trap.
Does that sound familiar, bat fucks?
And you're getting
Exactly
aggressive.
when he's tired.
You're getting aggressive. Okay, so that's the end of the first issue. Well, basically, since the Black Panther lost, he's like, you know what? That's my bad. I wasn't gonna hurt you guys anyway. I'm testing my mettle, basically, is what he was saying. And they throw this dope party. I mean, we're talking every African stereotype you can imagine is in this first page. Drums and spears, and they're dancing around with headdresses on.
And sci-fi Kalashnikovs.
Yeah, and there's like one guy with this huge machine gun, and it's like, what the hell?
Trained a random woman.
Anyway, so, T'Challa starts showing them around the property.
Lights up, too. I wonder what kind of cigarette that was.
Yeah, he did. He lit up a cigarette. That was another one thing where I was like, oh, that's stuff you don't see in comic books anymore. Making fun of Native Americans and smoking.
We did skip over a cool part where they walk in and they're amazed by the stereo system with cassette player. At
Right.
this point, the Black Panther's like, I got money. I roll like a big dog. I buy pretty toys.
Still another example of old and the new, darling. Look at the elaborate stereo music system, complete with a tape recorder. They flash real quick to some dudes who are out in the jungle.
Including random white guys
They're just normal dudes.
in Africa.
Probably like
heavy-
ivory hunters or some crap.
with heavy machine guns.
Yeah. They're walking around and they get ambushed by this gigantic looking red gorilla. Man, and Jack Kirby kicks ass. I used to really hate Jack Kirby as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
This is freaking badass stuff.
It really is.
Like, at first he's a gorilla, and then they get attacked by this gigantic red elephant.
Pachyderm.
And this freaking elephant looks awesome. And then the next page, as the elephant's throwing all these debris.
It's basically creating a hurricane with
Yeah, it's like a hurricane of tree debris, and it is straight up in motion. Very bombastic panel.
Yeah.
With all
And
this
keep in
debris
mind, too,
flying
this is a giant elephant. Elephants aren't small to begin with. This one is about the size of a 3-story house.
Cut back to T'Challa, and he's running through his origin of how he came to be, and
He's pointing out that they're sitting on what looked initially like a marble bench that's worth $20 million in 1960s dollars.
where he claims what vibranium is. The entire place is made out of vibranium.
They have a nigh inexhaustible mound of vibranium that only exists in Wakanda, and part of his job is to make sure that nobody gets this ore that's so valuable to his people.
He starts to go into his origin about how, I'm going to tell you how my father was killed. And Ben Grimm's like, yawn! Heard this a million times. I've seen this movie and this movie.
Tarzan, Bomb of the Jungle Boy, I can quote the Jungle Book from heart.
Yeah. He goes, let me guess, ivory hunters killed your father. We all heard it. And he was like, oh, not exactly. It wasn't an ivory hunter. It was Ulysses Claw looking for vibranium.
And vibranium is this incredibly valuable material to the outside world. For starters, nobody
swallows vibration.
Yeah, it absorbs all vibration, so obviously that's a tons of uses. But most people think that it's a myth. They don't believe that it actually exists because Wakanda is this very remote, isolated country. But Claw is going after King T'Chaka to try to get him to sell some vibranium, and if you don't sell it, well, he's going to get gacked. And he wasn't going to sell it, so he got gacked.
So basically he goes in to say, you know, his father was gunned down. As they were bringing some of Ulysses Claw's sound equipment to him as a child, he ambushed one of the dudes carrying the sound gun.
Well, yeah, we should probably point out, okay, Ulysses Claw, who has really intense facial hair, he's deeply opposed to mustaches, even though he's got this fucking jacked up, elongated face that could probably use a mustache.
Abe Lincoln.
Oh, Abe Lincoln? Yeah, he is Abe Lincoln. He's evil Abe Lincoln. But there's this great half splash where it's just a full-on facial shot of him looking fucking grim and gaunt and spooky.
He's
but
pretty creepy looking dude.
Yeah. He's figured out how to absorb sound waves and to become a destructive force, to create matter out of raw sound. And that's why he needs the vibranium to help him to absorb those vibrations from sound to create the sound projections that can be destructive. And one of these devices is what little T'Challa, son of T'Chaka, grabs a hold of and starts blasting people with. The criminals who killed his parents, or at least his father, then move on to try to annihilate his entire tribe and take all the vibranium. This guy's like 9 years old and he picks up this gigantic sound weapon and just starts fucking blasting these motherfuckers with it.
And the second blast that he hits Claw with is what destroys Ulysses Claw's hand and mangles it.
Immediately prior to that, he's saying, the little savage wouldn't dare.
Yeah.
Oh, we dare, especially after that savage comment. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Everybody has to fucking cut and run because they're not going to be able to handle this stuff. And meanwhile, the 9-year-old boy can't chase after them with this gigantic piece of sound projection equipment.
It's Kirby equipment, so it's ridiculous.
They say, too, it's been 10 years. So he's 19 years old at this point. He's still a teenager. So you can see why he'd feel the need to beat up the Fantastic Four to prove himself, I guess.
We snap back to reality, and there's like an alarm going off. Oh, and they keep saying that it was 10 years to the day that T'Chaka had been killed. That was why he invited the Fantastic Four there, is because he wanted to test his might. Because if he could beat the Fantastic Four, he knew he was finally ready for Claw to return. Because he just keeps waiting for Claw to come back.
Or being a seriously Machiavelli motherfucker, he could have invited the Fantastic Four so they would be around when Claw showed up, just in case he couldn't handle the guy. Wheels within wheels and shit.
The alarms that were going off were these gigantic, the elephant and gorilla that we saw earlier in the game. These constructs keep shrugging off the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four show up to try and bust them up. Everything they do either doesn't work or seems to make them more powerful.
This team is seriously neutered in the story arc because once again, Human Torch goes right at this thing, trying to blast him, is immediately seized and captured in the hand of the red monkey, and then the thing runs up and manages to punch the monkey hard enough where at least he lets go of the Human Torch, but they're both blown backwards by a sonic boom that's created by this equal and opposing force coming back at them.
Meanwhile, T'Challa is like, okay, this has got to be Claw. For constructs that big, he has to have some gigantic machinery. I know the only place in Wakanda or the area surrounding surrounding Wakanda that you could hide machinery like that, and that's the largest cave on the outskirts of the city. He goes straight there.
And what's cool too is he's doing it by the tree line, so you got this really smooth, stealthy looking silhouette running across the trees, landing silently. They've got captions letting you know how graceful and how stealthy all this is being done.
Once he crashes into the little cave, he busts up some of Claw's guys, and he finds Claw working this gigantic sound machine. And that's when he spins around, and you see that his hand, they never say it was like amputated or anything. He's just wearing this glove. What's it called, like a power glove or something like that?
Yeah.
Not to be confused with the Nintendo power glove. Yeah, it looks like he's trying to get bootleg Dish Network from his hand. So he starts trying to tangle with the Black Panther, and using this machine, he constructs an actual, like, Red Panther or whatever, right?
A giant sound panther, yeah.
And much to his chagrin, does nothing to Black Panther, is able to dodge it and fight it off and everything. Says,
yeah, this thing
isn't possible. He's outfighting my own giant panther. His speed, his strength. He's like a human panther himself.
This panther is at least the size of a horse, and Black Panther's still like fucking wrenching it and throwing it up against the walls and shit. Fucking coolest, man. The constructs disappear in front of the Fantastic Four, who've been able to do jack shit against them, and Reed uses his gigantic intelligence to explain, something must have happened, because we didn't do that. And then they flash back to the Black Panther, who reveals that he has set up the equipment that Claw was using to explode, because he himself is a scientist and recognizes how this shit works. So his whole equipment setup has been slowly self-destructing without Claw realizing it until the whole thing starts crumbling in on them. And only Black Panther's incredible panther speed allows him to run the fuck out of there before it all collapses on top of it. The whole time he's fighting the Panther construct, he knows that the self-destruct has already begun. He's just stalling until it takes place.
The whole cave blows up, implodes in on itself. All the constructs vanish. Black Panther shows up, is like, it's finally over, man. I killed that dude. So I guess I'm not going to be Black Panther anymore because I'm all done. And they're like, no, Black Panther, you're dope as hell. You should be a superhero. He's like, okay, I shall do it. I pledge my fortune, my powers, and my very life to the service of all mankind.
It's worth noting, too, that the Wakandans in this origin story are not technologically advanced at all. What had happened is that once all this destruction had been wreaked against them, as chieftain, Black Panther started selling vibranium to governments to raise enough money to not only gain weapons for Wakanda and make it a defensible country so that could never happen again, but also to pay for his very sophisticated education in all the world's best universities.
Right. When T'Chaka was chief, you mean there was none of this wild technology? It only came about under the rule of T'Challa.
Yeah, and most probably under his invention as well. He's a great scientist, and he probably came up with a lot of this stuff.
So in the last 4 panels of this issue, they flash back to the cave, and the Claw has survived sort of under the rubble in like a little pocket, and the machine has just a little bit of power left in it. And he's like, well, I'm basically trapped. I never thought about actually putting myself in the machine to see how I'd react. So he climbs into the machine, and he starts to turn, there's Kirby bubbles abound, which is obviously simultaneously the origin of the Claw, because he's going to turn into all sound shit and whatnot.
The whole 2-issue story arc, with the exception of a weird tangent involving the humans being trapped on the moon that muddied up everything. This is a backdoor pilot for the Black Panther. He fucking owns the Fantastic Four. He spends 1 issue beating them all up in individual combat, and then the entire 2nd issue, he punks them as they limply try to fight these constructs and do nothing.
He looks badass in these 2 issues. The stupid Wyatt Wingfoot thing, that doesn't make him look bad. That makes Fantastic Four look shit.
Well, and the writer, because the whole Wyatt Wingfoot aspect just shouldn't have been in there.
It should have been in it.
They should have just let the Black Panther release them, and so he can show how magnanimous he is, and show that, look, I had you completely at my mercy, but I'm not actually a bad guy. Now let me tell you my origin story.
Or have the Claw show up and interrupt the fighting, or you know what I mean? That's
anything but inventing Wyatt Wingfoot to make everybody look terrible.
Here's my question with this: where did the Black Panther go from here immediately?
Guest appearances.
So, because this is, like I'm saying, this
reads like such a pilot episode. It reads like you're about to spin this guy off.
Yeah. Follow the Black Panther's continuing escapades in Black Panther #1. So, you know what I mean? I feel like I should see one of those at the end of this, and I guess it just didn't happen.
The thing of it was, my understanding is that Black Panther was mostly created by Jack Kirby, and he was originally going to be the Cold Tiger in a slightly brighter costume. It was black and yellow. Somebody, whether it was Kirby or Stan Lee, heard about this small political group called the Black Panthers that was forming. It was actually a nickname of this group at the time. They weren't officially called the Black Panthers at that point, and it sounded a lot better, so they used that title. Then somebody got cold feet about having the first black superhero appear on the cover of Marvel's best-selling magazine. So where it was initially going to have a Batman-style cowl where his face was showing, they went and blackened him out entirely, so he just is nothing but a black silhouette. Just downplay his Africanness. This issue comes out, and he's pretty well received, but nobody has the courage to actually put this guy in an ongoing forum. So instead he becomes a popular recurring guest star. He turns up in Daredevil. He eventually starts working with the Avengers, and it's good because it gives him a chance to build up his backstory, but it took all the way into the 70s before he could actually get his own book, his own solo project, and it's the unfortunately titled Jungle Action, which was launched as a Kazar series, and that flamed out quickly. So then they switched it over to Black Panther and carried the book for the rest of the
If
run.
they would have created it for Black Panther and called it Jungle Action, that would have been really
Bad taste.
sauce. Yeah.
We were in the midst of a jungle action at that time, so it could have been a war comic too if they wanted to go that way.
I guess I never read these issues. I own this comic with the reprint.
Yeah, see, we didn't actually read, well, 2 of the 3 of us read it in our copies of the Black Panther series from the late 90s. Issue 36 was billed as a 100-page monster because not only did they have the new story by the regular Black Panther creative team of the time, but you also had the reprint of the 2 issues of Fantastic Four that had the debut story of Black Panther, and then a series of sketch pages, and then a story from Jungle Action number 8. One of those things that they were experimenting with. They've done a bunch of that type of stuff in the 70s, both DC and Marvel. And then randomly Marvel decided to try to do these value-added issues in the late 90s, early 2000s. And apparently they didn't go anywhere because they stopped doing them. But it's handy when you want to have a quick reference.
Yeah.
And for $3.50, 100 pages is awesome.
Yeah, so I don't think I realized that literally from jump, that was the Black Panther's MO, is that he spends all of his time devising ways to negate you and his enemies, and he's planned he knows Claw's coming back. He spends all of his time planning for Claw. He knows he's gonna fight the Fantastic Four, so he sets everything up just so, and he makes them foil themselves and fall into the traps that he's set to negate all of their powers and whatnot.
Absolutely. And then, as I said, that he has him on hands in case he's not enough to defeat Claw. And he spent the last 10 years not only readying himself to battle Claw, but readying his entire nation, proofing it against this attack that he knows is going to come.
So what year did this come out? 66?
1966.
Get some. Batman in 1965. Was he doing this kind of shit?
What was going on with Batman in 1965?
Zach Bao Peng?
Yeah. You're talking about, back in the 30s, Batman, as they like to address, influenced by characters like the Shadow and Zorro, Dark Avenger of the Night, swoops in, beats up people, that kind of thing. But here's the deal. He never really had those kind of complex schemes. His villains had those kind of complex schemes.
Right.
For the most part, especially once Robin showed up, it was not really that much different from a Captain America. He would just burst onto the scene and start punching people and doing his thing, whipping out gadgets. But he was grinning most of the time. They always made a point of having him work with the police and be very up on the up and up. And he's got to be a good father figure to Robin. And in the 1950s, he got goofy and crazy and he's fighting aliens and shit. So he's very cartoonish, very broad. No sinister quality to the character at all, or at least he had some of that when he first got started. And then by the time you get to the 60s, you're caught up in the midst of Batmania, where he's almost played as a comedic character, and he's still broad and ridiculous, sunny and friendly, and he's hanging out with Justice League and all that kind of stuff. So the character as we know him today, the Batman who is that conniving, that manipulative, that antisocial, that did not exist until well into the 70s and really into the 80s. Frank Miller gets a lot of the credit for that. Denny O'Neil certainly contributed to it. I would say Mike W. Bard earns a lot of credit on that front for making Batman the somewhat unlikable fellow that we know today that really put an edge on who that character was. The point being, though, is all that shit was way the fuck after Black Panther had already set that all up. So much of what Batman became came directly from the Black Panther. And it's just like Batman is the Beatles to Black Panther's Chuck Berry. This is a guy who created this sort of superhero to a large degree, what we know of Batman today. And then some white guy came and covered his material. And because he's a white guy with a broader audience and less resistance to him making comic book appearances and acting in this manner, he gets the popularizing, he gets all the fucking credit for it.
At all.
Yeah.
Right. And he doesn't list T'Challa in the liner notes or anything like that.
Oh, fuck no.
So I think that that's really interesting. And I think you pointed out before, too, that DC was never really about conflict within the heroes, too.
Right.
That wasn't a big thing they did.
Yeah, they DC heroes didn't fight each other until the 70s, late 60s and into the 70s, when guys who were influenced by Marvel started writing DC comics.
Yeah. Wow.
So you can see what a hugely influential character the Black Panther is without getting any fucking credit for it. Because I actually made a point of trying to read up on some histories, various comic book history books, and you know what they all say? hey, look, he's the first black superhero. It was really a noble effort for them to do that. And they move on. He gets maybe a paragraph. He gets no fucking credit. This is important. I've got in front of me right now the book Black Images in the Comics, A Visual History by Frederick Stromberg. And what this is, there's a lot of material at the front where it's text talking about the black experience in 4 colors. And then from page 42, the actual black images start. I want you to flip through this book, and I want you to tell me when things stop being grotesque and horrifically offensive. Big lips, jungle attire, felt barely human proportions, very simian qualities.
Page 118.
And that is the famous story.
Well, no, then it goes back to being bad again.
Yeah, it goes back to being bad again. But that's that famous EC Comics story. Can you flip back to that page real quick?
Written by Bill Gaines and Al Feldstein. And drawn by Joe Orlando.
Okay, and that was published when?
1956.
There's a famous comic book story where it's an astronaut on the first mission to Mars, and everything's going according to normal until at the very end of the story he takes off his helmet and he's revealed to be a black man this entire time. The Comic Code Authority wanted to censor that story. They did not want that story to be published. Looking through the code criteria, there was no reason to prohibit it. So first they wanted it prohibited because he was a black man, but they wouldn't say so. Then they wanted to prohibit it because he had perspiration. They wanted them to at least take out the perspiration. And Bill Gaines said, fuck you, we're not going to do it. We will take this to the media. We'll take it to whoever we got to go to. We're publishing this story. It was a very heroic effort on their part. It's a very iconic image. I don't know if it's true or not, but when I see that first shot from the new Star Wars trailer where they show the black stormtrooper, there's something about that shot that reminds me of this image. I kind of wonder a little bit if there isn't some influence there.
Wow, yeah, no, you're right.
And here it is, 2014. You still had a bunch of people freak out going, there's no black stormtroopers.
Dumbest thing ever.
Where does, after that image though, and this was again, what year, 1960 you said?
1956.
Sorry, 1956. Keep flipping through the pages until you find another image like that. Well, that one right there, that's a Gil Kane. Who's that character there?
This is Flash meets a young black man named Joel Harper.
Oh, yeah, that was in a Justice League of America story. So this is just a regular guy who isn't drawn in a completely derogatory manner in a DC comic book.
Yeah, and then we have an appearance of Harriet Tubman, and then Black Panther.
In the midst of all that, there were a couple of other quality black representations. There was a black lawman in the old Western series, single-issue story, Lobo, that I believe was published by Dell. And they didn't go any further with that. Going back to 1948, you had All Negro Comics, which was produced by actual black people for black people. They had a lot of trouble getting distribution. They didn't get past the first issue. And they had Jungle Lord strip. They had a Dick Tracy-style detective character, but no actual superheroes. Black Panther was the first superhero, but perhaps more importantly than that, he was one of the first representations of a black character in all of comics where he's not running around with a fucking spear or where he's not grotesque. He's not a fucking bullshit diminutive sidekick like Ebony White in the Spirit strip. He is a hero who is not only on an equal standing with the people that he's working with, he is shown to be superior to them. He outwits and outmuscles the Fantastic Four.
Well,
that's a huge moment for comic book history.
And here's another thing I want to point out, and that's that, okay, so we read The Cat. The Cat was obviously pandering, trying to get a female audience. Very, in a lot of ways, I mean, it was entertaining, but in a lot of ways it was kind of patronizing too. This comic had none of that. There was nothing going, oh geez, they're just trying to beef this guy up. There was none of that. They totally respected him. It was just sort of, he just happens to be black. The whole story was just sort of, he happens to be black.
He's an African chieftain, and there's definitely some images that are stereotypical of Africa, grass skirts and some spears and things like that. But it's contrasted against this much higher than any Western world technology. Yeah. And the Black Panther himself is never shown in that light. He is shown as a person who is cultured, intelligent, capable, and when he puts on that suit, he looks like not only a superhero, but a badass, cool superhero.
Yeah.
And I gotta give Jack Kirby some serious credit too. A lot of times when artists draw characters of different ethnicities of themselves, you go from having distinct faces to this is my black guy face, and it's the same face over and over again. But like the Abe that's shown at the beginning of the book looks completely different in his facial structure and everything else, the way he looks at people. Yeah, like I always want Black Panther to be this really handsome guy because I remember him from the 70s strip where that's how he's drawn as this really romantic figure. But here, it's funny because he's very grim. He's a guy with really intense eyes. They're kind of dark, and he's not as classically handsome as some of the other people that are around him. Some of the other Wakandans are actually drawn in a prettier looking than him. He's drawn as being an intense figure. He's not drawn to be the pretty boy. He's the guy who's scary and determined. They could have all looked the same. A lot of comic books, these guys all look the same.
Yeah, and we saw it all the time in, those Vietnam era communist fighting issues where, nobody was flattering. Even the way they spoke. They didn't, and they'd love to play around with the way Ben Grimm talked in these issues. So they could have totally gone with some tribal speak and nothing. They all spoke perfectly clear English. He didn't try and do anything like that.
There's a little bit of stylization with the way that T'Challa spoke, but nothing that diminished the way he spoke. If anything, he spoke more appropriately, more classically.
Right. Because he's royalty.
Right.
Right. But that's the way they went. They didn't go tribal. You know what I mean?
Look, the giant red pachyderm.
They didn't do any of that. It was just, again, it was like they just have to be black. That's what it was. I don't think that they put any thought in it one way or another. I think they just wrote a story, and Black Panther happens to be black, and he happens to be on the African continent. Mm. Now the African continent makes sense because of the vibranium they have. That's a rare metal.
Well,
where else would it be? It would probably, it's either going to be probably somewhere in South America or it's going to be in Africa, right? I mean, that makes sense. Well, they have diamond mines and things like that in Africa.
Well, and not just that, too. You have to remember that this is still, at the end of the day, a Fantastic Four comic. These people are explorers.
Right.
So they're not supposed to be going to, like, some random U.S. city. You have to take them to someplace interesting, someplace exotic, unique. So why not go to Africa?
Yeah, they're not going to some shithole like New Jersey and, look, there's a Wakandan, there's some kingdom and some, you know what I mean? It's not going to happen like that. Yeah. It has to be somewhere exotic because, like you said, they're explorers. They either go into some bizarre other dimension or they go some strange area of the world.
And if there is any one area of complaint with this comic book, it's that it's got Fantastic Four's name on the cover, and they are punked throughout those two issues. In that way, Black Panther is a bit of a Marty Sue, but who cares? He's fucking cool as shit. And that cover is such a great, iconic, enthralling image. You really want to read who this guy is. He looks like he's about to do something serious to the Fantastic Four, and then he proceeds to do so.
And the great thing is that he's not really superhuman. Mm. I mean, he has some.
They allude to he's got
hearing
some herbs and stuff that he takes to help him to reach the levels that he does, but
in order to match, and he is a physical force, but in order to match the Thing. He had to plan. He had to use intelligence to diminish the Thing to get him to his level. Yeah. So they do well to play up his physicality. But they also do well to play up his mental capacity and his intelligence, and in a lot of ways his business sense. I mean, he's very well fleshed out in these two issues, and you understand that he's to be reckoned with, right? Yeah. I mean, he's a force.
He's cool, and you want to read comics about the guy.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
And we will read more comics about him.
And we'll talk in more depth, but I needed a short episode this week, and we needed to get on the Black Panther train finally.
Yeah, this was good.
The Black Panther actually returned the following month in Fantastic Four number 54, where he played baseball with the Fantastic Four and Wyatt Wingfoot, who managed to hit a ball thrown very hard by the Thing. Black Panther liked the game all right, but this will never replace lion hunting, my friends. Never have I enjoyed the company of any so much as the Fantastic Four. You have filled my land with cheer and spirit of fellowship. And now, in my own small way, I shall try to show you my gratitude. T'Challa took everybody to this really swank lounge that he had a concert pianist playing at. He gave Reed and Sue these very posh clothes. Sue even says, "Imagine the latest fashions from Paris and Rome here in the heart of the jungle. If my paltry gifts find favor in your eyes, then my heart is happy. You have proven yourselves to be my friends, and the Black Panther does not use such a word lightly." He gave Ben Grimm this exercise device, the most powerful portable exerciser on Earth. It can generate a force equal to the press of 10 tons for you to test your strength against. I trust it will afford you many pleasant moments of relaxation. While everybody else pretty much appreciated their gifts, Johnny Storm was inconsolable because he was worried about his latest girlfriend, Crystal, who was trapped with the Inhumans behind some wall of force or some such thing. So Black Panther gave him this really cool sounding device called a gyro cruiser. No matter how the mobile outer bubble rolls along, the gyroscopically operated driving unit will remain constantly upright. Basically, it was a super, super high-tech hamster ball. So anyway, the rest of the story is Johnny and Wyatt Wingfoot. And man, what the hell happened to Wyatt Wingfoot? This guy is like constantly like wielding weapons and doing like really incredible stuff. How did he end up just being She-Hulk's boyfriend hurt Steve Trevor. Because this guy is like totally super competent. So anyway, they team up and they try to liberate the Inhumans. Something must have worked out on that front because they were loose by the time of the 1967 Fantastic Four Annual #5. The annual just has way too much going on, and I didn't particularly want to read it because it's full of Inhumans nonsense, and just reading as much as I had to understand the Black Panther portion, I realized I can't stand reading anything about the Inhumans. They get on my nerves. The Black Panther's portion of the story is that he bought his own island, which was dubbed Panther Island, and while he was checking the joint out, his legs were almost seized by Medusa's hair. He manages to break loose, though, and then gets into a fight with Karnak, whose ass he promptly kicks. I came to you in peace, but you attacked without cause. So if it is combat you desire, then combat you will have. And he puts the batak on Karnak, and then he says, he rises. His strength seems more than human, but nothing that lives can stop the charge of the Black Panther. But something does actually stop him. Black Bolt stands there silently, and Black Panther can sense his kingly presence. He knows that he's in the presence of somebody who is as respectable and authoritative and important as he is, so he backs down. Karnak doesn't want to stop the fight, but he demurs to his king. Panther then decides to join the Inhumans in battling Psycho Man and his goony, bad Kirby minions. One of the guys has a Hunter missile that he fires at Black Panther like a heat-seeking missile, and he only does this after Panther had managed to dodge his regular bullet shots. Black Panther is evading this missile, but he can't get away from it, so he decides to use the evil minion as a bum shield. When in doubt what to do, there can be only one answer. Resort to the unexpected, such as leaving behind your foe and letting him take the brunt of his own flying weapon. Bummer was either killed or at least his outfit was shredded. Psycho Man then created some sort of werebeast thing that looks a little bit like Blastar, more powerful and faster than Black Panther. But the king of the Wakandas still manages to hold his own. Like in his own origin story, the Fantastic Four get involved and they manage to shut down the machine that created the werebeast, so it up and vanishes while fighting Black Panther. With that distraction out of the way, Panther sees that the Inhumans and the Fantastic Four are being pinned down by Psycho Man, so he bursts through a window and beats Psycho Man. But as it turns out, this costume, it is empty. There is no one inside, and yet my eyes saw him move. My ears heard him speak. Speaking of eyes, it was with this story that Black Panther's eyes were no longer visible as human through his mask, and instead were white slits, which was common through a lot of his appearances from that point onward. And while it's cool that Black Panther got to beat Psycho Man in his second major story, it's unfortunate that in the meantime, the Fantastic Four defeated his own nemesis, Claw, the murderous master of sound, a few months earlier in Fantastic Four #56. But luckily they did so through the use of vibranium brass knuckles that had been requested by Reed Richards and sent with haste by T'Challa prior to the arrival of Claw. So, in a roundabout sort of way, Black Panther still managed to beat Claw without even showing up for the adventure. I want to apologize for the sound quality of this episode, and it's going to affect a few more besides. We had a really great recording day this weekend, but unfortunately we had a technical snafu, and even though I went through the trouble of going over to Mac's house, setting up the mixer, setting up all the microphones, my stupid damn laptop defaulted to its internal mic, and I didn't think enough to check to make sure the sound quality was going into the computer as opposed to the sound quality that I was hearing plugged into the mixer. That sucked. But it kind of worked out because this episode's a little bit late, but as of Wednesday, Black Panther was involved in the death of another major Marvel hero. So if there was a week for a Black Panther podcast to drop, this would seem to be the one. And if you don't want any spoilers, you should probably avoid the internet because I expect there'll be a little bit of chatter over this one. This week we received 3 new Google Plus followers in Karen Williams, Lamont Fritz, and Rick L. Phillips. We also received a WordPress blog like from Mact Wisp. New Twitter followers include 80s Computer Geek, Professor Alan Middleton of the Quarterbin Podcast and Shortbox Showcase, Chris Callahan, Compton After Dark, Gaming Yesterday, Geekin' Out, Kevin Karskallen, Little Wayne at Little Wayne, spelled with 2 E's, Max Romero of the Eow, It's Plastic Man blog, Tumblr thingamajiggy, Michael Bailey of Views from the Long Box fame, Random at Lifey Things, again spelled with 2 E's, and Square Musings. Twitter favorites came from Ange, the Anti-Fascist, Barai Van Uden, Charlton Hero, Chris William, CJ, Comics Therapy, Count Druncula, David Golding Artist, Eel Perrin, Eternal Rage, Fantastiverse, Feed It Comics, Firestorm Fan, Future Primitive, Greg Barr, Knowing Flame Comics, Hashtag Marvelous at DJ Dub Floyd, Mystery Vlog, Professor Riptide, Siskoid, Storybreakers, Sin, and the Top 5 Road Crew. Retweets came from Ange, the Anti-Fascist, Between the Pages, Charlton Hero, Chris William, CJ, Count Druncula, DJ Nath at Nath Goguin, close enough. Eternal Rage, Fantastiverse, Firestorm Fan, Future Primitive, The Irredeemable Shag, J. David Weeder, Keith G. Baker, #Marvelous, Mystery Vlog, Randy Caldwell, Sin, and the Top 5 Road Crew. Count Druncula also made us another one of his famous Fumetti Funnies comic strips, featuring Mockingbird this time, so check that out on one of our blogs. Martin Gray, who is not Canadian, wrote, "This is an interesting, well, I suppose it's a grab bag. I don't always listen if the subject matter doesn't grab me." This is on the annual, obviously. So that's mostly Marvel Cosmic and the TV film talk, but it's good to hear snippets. I mildly disagree, I'm a temperate fellow, with the idea that the 70s Hulk telly show was more difficult to produce than other superhero stuff. Painting a wrestler green isn't tougher than sticking a beauty queen in a bikini. Boy, the Hulk TV show was a downer, with Bill Bixby's banner never getting a break, and no superhero fun whatsoever. The Hulk may as well have been Lenny from Of Mice and Men for all the wonder he inspired. In the UK, it played on Friday evening, sending me into the weekend with a mild depression. Hey-ho, Christmas, etc., and congratulations on your general awesomeness. And also, as he's been referred to, Sherlock Gray came up with the Superman comic book that we've been wrestling with that was your first Superman comic from back in the 90s, referenced in the Zero episode.
Yeah, I sort of described it. I knew somebody at some point was going to recognize that damn comic book and post it. I think that he did. I think he got it right.
Yeah, the art's actually on our blog. You can check it out. No thoughts on the Hulk 70 show, though?
I think that he might have kind of misconstrued what we were saying. We weren't trying to say that it was hard to paint a wrestler green, but when you think, like, when they were come out with the last couple Hulk movies, you're like, oh my god, you got to have all this CGI. So it's crazy to think in the 70s, the best, well-produced superhero television show was one that in your brain you think they couldn't have done to begin with, because how do you do a Hulk TV show without CGI, right? So it's just sort of the irony behind it, and they did it rather well, actually. But yes, it was a depressing show.
Yeah.
Not a happy show.
Yeah, but at least it was competent. The Spider-Man TV series is more depressing for being so numbing an experience. I used to watch those. I used to smush them together into bullshit TV movies that ran on Saturday mornings when I was a kid, and they were dreadful. Did you ever see the 70s Spider-Man show?
I don't. The live action one?
Yeah.
No, just like I've seen jokes of it, right?
Yeah, it was no damn good. He was like fighting the janitors in office spaces and stuff. It was cheap as shit. Okay, Eternal Rage wrote on episode 26, Marvel DC Movie Slate 2020, V versus V Penultimo. Nebulous. I have hatred for this word and all its variations. Clark Kent versus Bruce Wayne? Strangely, that would be a more interesting watch. He watched the 9/11 video twice, and never again. That is eerie. Really is a wow kind of moment. I tried listening to that Light song, and I couldn't. I tried for 20 seconds. I just couldn't do it.
So here's what makes me blood red mad. That 9/11 Illuminati video was the most important thing that I wanted Frank to put in that fucking annual, and he buried it an hour and 45 minutes into the goddamn thing, and I'm so pissed off. What he should have done is where you know how there's that little snippet of like he'll put some sound sometimes right before the theme? That should have been it. That he should have opened up the whole fucking podcast with that shit, and that should have set the tone for that whole annual podcast.
Do you want to tell them why that didn't run with the original Iron Man episode?
Oh, well, because the original Iron Man episode came out during the week of 9/11.
Yeah, and that was when I was starting my European vacation and I had to do a last-minute edit before that shit went out.
I think you guys are all grown-ups, and it would have been fine.
And the taste would have been nasty in somebody's mouth, I'm sure.
Controversy's fine, too. We can have some controversy on this podcast, too. Look.
Controversy brings out the trolls.
Well, now it's not controversial because it's fucking December and January. So I'm demanding that we play it again.
Okay, we'll see how that works out. I'd rather have the one guy mad. Anyway, Count Druncula writes, spoilers? Check. Mature language? Check. Viewers beware? Check. Great intro? Big ol' check. Like Mr. Fixit, I love Batman, but over the last couple years, I have grown to hate Batman fans. I love and agree with Frank's comment that Marvel is built on interpersonal conflict while DC is built on cooperation. I'm not interested in Batman fighting Superman. I want to see them working together and showing genuine friendship despite their differences in operating behavior. This reminds me of the tagline for Freddy vs. Jason or Alien vs. Predator. Whoever wins, we lose. The Captain America Tony Stark conflict in the first Avengers movie is basically the Captain America Hawkeye conflict from the Avengers comics of the 60s. That's sweet for Iron Man as it sets up the relationship early on for the eventual throwdown in Civil War. Unfortunately, it's stolen the most interesting aspect of Hawkeye, so now that character is pretty lifeless and vacant. Hopefully that will change in Avengers Age of Ultron. Also regarding Frank and Shag's conversation in The Stinger, I'm right with Frank in terms of the Scarlet Witch. I like the idea of the character, but she has rarely had good writing and good art at the same time in the comics. However, she is the character I am most interested in seeing in Age of Ultron. More than Vision, more than Quicksilver, and more than Ultron himself. I would be a little kinder and say that Elizabeth Olsen has an unconventional beauty, but the early promotional shots make her look sexy as hell. I don't know if it's the skirt or the knee-high socks or the fact that the first image of her was an overhead down shirt photograph, but I'm digging this version of Wanda. It doesn't hurt that she's the first really superhuman woman that we have seen in this world and whose power isn't combat or fighting skills. Black Widow, Melinda May, Mockingbird, Peggy Carter, even otherworldly women like Gamora and Lady Sif. Their powers all seem to be based on martial arts or shooting stuff. Now we're finally getting a full-on Superwoman to root for. Also, Mac is crazy, Falcon rules. Although I think Marvel Studios inverted the personality types of Jim Rhodes and Sam Wilson from the comics for their big screen counterparts. I think there's a lot for you to chew on. What do you think?
I guess I haven't read a lot of Falcon in the comics. Is that true? Is Falcon sort of a badass buddy that they go around and fly around helicopters with? Like,
No. He's saying they inverted it from the comics to the screen. So Jim Rhodes is the wet blanket that Rhodey has been in some of the early, especially the first Iron Man movie. Tony. Terrence Howard would have probably been a good casting for the Falcon as seen in the comics.
Yeah, but in the other two movies, I don't think he's much a wet blanket, is he?
Well, but we're going with Count Druncula's option. Now, Jim Rhodes, in my experience with him in the comics, is that he is more of the action-packed buddy in the cop movie picture kind of feel. The Murtaugh to Tony's Riggs sort of kind of, but not really. You know what I'm talking about, though?
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah. So they turned Falcon into that.
I didn't think the Falcon was that in Winter Soldier at all. Like I said, I forgot Falcon was even in Winter Soldier. So I don't think he was as dynamic as Rhodey is in the comics. I disagree. I apologize.
Okay.
Whereas, I mean,
but
especially in Iron Man 2, in Iron Man, personality types, I don't know. I don't know. Okay. I would think if that was true, I would have remembered Falcon more. I get where he's going, but I don't think so.
Well, I think, again, because of there's more of a contrast if you give Tony a wet blanket when Robert Downey Jr. is playing him, and you give Captain America a more positive, laid back, let's just go on and do it kind of guy. Where if you flip it and you've got Tony with his more chill partner, you don't have a conflict there. And if you have Captain America with his more responsible, uptight sidekick, it's samey. So I think that's kind of where Druncula was coming from there.
Okay.
Who are you most excited to see in Age of Ultron?
Ultron.
Really? At this point still?
Yeah. And I think Cap's going to be really big in this movie, too.
I really want to see the Vision in action. That's going to be really fucking cool.
Panther.
Oh, yeah, and Black Panther,
in whatever, in the Stinger or whatever
he's going to. I don't even know if it's going to be a Stinger. I think he's going to just cameo maybe, but he's going to be in there somewhere. I'm confident of that. It's just going to be small enough where they don't have to put him into the Lego line and in the coloring books so that it's all getting spoiled because people are getting that material early.
Yeah, in video games.
Scarlet Witch,
I think... I don't know if I'm excited about Scarlet Witch, but
that's not a character you're excited about to begin with.
No, I think it's cool though. I think he's right that we're finally getting a Superwoman in these.
I'm really obviously. I mean,
huge deal.
That one of my major complaints with Guardians of the Galaxy is I was tired of seeing these women take a back seat. Where all the imagery, like the trailers we've seen from Avengers so far, it looks like Scarlet Witch is going to be blowing the shit out of stuff. And there's this promotional image they came out with, this giant poster where the Avengers are being swarmed by Ultrons, and most of the Avengers are struggling against this onslaught. Some to a degree that's somewhat ridiculous because when Hawkeye can't even get his bow out and he's just trying to like stab them with arrows, Hawkeye's going to be dead at this point. If the Ultrons get a hold of Hawkeye at all, he's dead. But the one person that's cutting a red swath through the robots is the Scarlet Witch. I think that they're going to make up for lost time and make her a significant badass. And obviously she's extraordinarily powerful in the Marvel universe, especially in more recent years.
Yeah, so she's going to be a big deal, and you know, whenever Captain Marvel shows up, she's going to be a big deal too. So that'll be two big ones.
And if they fuck with her down the line, you might get a proper more big screen adaptation of the Dark Phoenix saga using Scarlet Witch as a proxy.
Yeah, for sure. And then his other point was that whether or not Tony Stark is stealing Hawkeye's shtick from,
Not so much Tony. Oh, right. As far as their dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that was one of Hawkeye's things. Right, that he and Cap always had that they would always ruffle each other's feathers. But I think Tony Stark and Cap had that a few times in the comics too. Maybe not as early as the 60s, but that happened there too. I wouldn't say that was a defining characteristic of Hawkeye. I think Hawkeye's dickness was his defining characteristic, and they already blew that out of the water. He's already not Hawkeye. So
I don't think we've seen enough of him, honestly, because we've seen so little of the actual Hawkeye, because he's got that tiny little cameo in the Thor movie. You see him in one scene of Avengers, and then for the majority of that movie, he's possessed, and then afterwards he's dealing with the psychological and perhaps physiological consequences of that possession. So I don't think we've seen the full Hawkeye yet. I actually think we were seeing more of Hawkeye in the Mjolnir Camelot scene from Age of Ultron they've seen, in the extended trailer, where everybody's trying to pick up Mjolnir. He's already kind of like talking smack about it. He's the one who kind of gets that going. That seems a little more Hawkeye to me.
I guess so, but it makes sense when it's the kooky quartet, I guess. But if Tony's there, Tony's the better person to have the conflict. It makes more sense to have the conflict between Tony Stark and Steve Rogers.
There's a greater parity of importance there.
Yeah.
Hawkeye's always going to be a secondary character.
Always, unfortunately.
Unless it's the West Coast Avengers.
Yeah, so you can't just have Hawkeye beef. You can't have Cap beefing with everybody on the team. He can't beef with Hawkeye and beef with Tony Stark. And if he does have a problem with Hawkeye, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. If he has problems with Tony Stark, that's a problem, right? If they have problems with Hawkeye, they say, Hawkeye, why don't you go work in some desk job somewhere, right? And he goes away. I get his point that it's just another knock on this film version of Hawkeye, which sucks really bad. But as far as the conflict goes, whether he was Hawkeye to the bone or not, I would rather him have the conflict with Tony Stark. It makes more sense. It's more compelling.
Well, and it's interesting to me, too, because with Civil War coming on the back end of Age of Ultron, which Avengers are going to be picking which sides? You could see Hawkeye siding with Captain America, so there's an ally right over there. And with these new guys coming in, you've got Vision, Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, potentially Black Panther, Captain Marvel. There's a lot more players already in this game than we're necessarily realizing, because we're so used to just seeing those main, 5 Avengers? Cap, Thor, Iron Man, Black Widow, Hulk, Hawkeye, 6. Yeah. Ange writes, great show as always. As you guys know by now, I hated Man of Steel for any number of reasons. So I also think that Batman vs. Superman is going to be an absolute mess. I think, like Fix It, it is going to be a car wreck that I will slowly take in. Horrible. To base the whole thing on Dark Knight Returns is just wrong. There is no point in making a movie about heroes fighting. There's no chance both will look good in the end. And like everyone said here, it shouldn't be a fight at all. Even if Batman has kryptonite, Superman can heat vision him from space, freeze him from a distance with super breath, or drop a building on him. The only thing holding Superman back is his heroic ideals. The only way I can see this working is if their fighting is a complete ruse, that they are doing it to lull Luthor to sleep, or to keep up some facade so bad guys don't know they work together as friends. I looked to Darwin Cook's New Frontier for that idea, and a New Frontier special that came out when the movie did. Cook included a cut scene written and drawn by him where Superman and Batman are hanging out in the Batcave talking about how they faked their fight. And Wonder Woman was the hero who brought them together as friends. As for Civil War, I thought it was an interesting book for the politics, but also a mini-series of heroes fighting heroes. And the ending seemed sudden. Cap just gave up. There was no other way to end that book without one of those characters looking bad. And even that ending, the Cap surrender felt forced. I'll see both movies, I'm sure, but they both have plot issues that will make it a bit tough to pull off. That's it for this week. I want to let everybody know that we will not have an episode of the Marvel Superheroes podcast next week. It will be preempted for a new show that will be in its own iTunes stream called The Underguides, which will cover independent comic books. We'll be tweeting about that, and we'll also have links on the blogs, so hope you checked out that show. But if not, then our own will be back the week following Marvel Superheroes, and will be part of a super team crossover, so I hope you guys check that one out.
The Marvel Superheroes podcast is in no way affiliated with or endorsed by Marvel Entertainment. All characters mentioned and audio clips employed are believed covered under fair use, with no infringement intended against their copyright holders. The views expressed in this podcast are assumed legitimate, truthful, and solely possessed by the speaker.
Our podcast is the proud recipient of a Siskoid Awards 2014 technical achievement ceremony. And as described by Siskoid, the Siskoids are a close cousin to the Oscars, just without the politics. It's Siskoid's make-believe awards program. And his make-believe awards program is hosted by Christina Hendricks, which shows his good taste. But even more of an indication of his good taste is that we won, right up here at the first technical achievement ceremony honor, Favorite New Podcast of 2014, the Marvel Superheroes Podcast, hosted by Diablo Frank, Illegal Machine, and Mr. Fixit. A hilarious dynamic between three old friends, good information on lesser-known characters, and fast and funky editing that avoids the longueurs. That must be some French-Canadian thing. Many other podcasts suffer from. The MSH podcast has been great to date, with no sign of that letting up.
Aww.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
That makes me feel good.
And we got this, Batman placard thing, too, from the early 80s. So it's somewhat more tangible than a Steam Award, because we get a JPEG.
Oh, I always wanted a JPEG.
Thank you to Siskoid. It's an honor to not be here virtually or whatever.
Yeah, first of all praise to the idol head of Diablo, the fucking ancient one. I couldn't have done this without the fucking other thing. What's his name?
Not that we're wanting to offend any followers of Dormammu.
Yeah. What's the eye that he's got?
Agamotto?
Oh, the Eye of Agamotto. How could I have left out the Eye of Agamotto? Dr. Bruce Banner. Who else do I want to thank?
Tony Stark, who makes you feel he's a cool exec with a heart of steel. Patsy Walker. And that Vixen Hetty Wolf.
Fuck, I was about to say it. My girl Hetty Wolf. I didn't mean to leave you out, girl. That's my quirrell.
You sleeping on the couch.
Yeah. I'm totally going to be in the doghouse when Hetty Wolf. I'm going to be in the doghouse instead of the wolf house, if you know what I'm trying to say.
That's so terrible. It's awesome.
I'd like to thank who else do we want to thank for all these episodes?
Man, you're the one who took us down that track.
I want to thank Guardians of the Galaxy. I want to thank Namor.
You want to at least thank the hits that Guardians of the Galaxy podcast got us?
Yeah. I don't want to thank Aquaman. Don't care about that guy. I want to thank Annihilation for almost being over. So we can actually
it's so close and yet so far, because God only knows when we're going to do that last part when we can actually get all three of us together. Because apparently Mr. Fix is going to be available on Sundays now.
Yeah, it's a Saturday though, so no Fix It. I want to thank both of my dogs who will occasionally bark in the background of a podcast.
Paquita's family, who you can occasionally hear squealing at video games, playing Mario Kart. And if you listen really closely in some episodes.
Who else has been really integral to this podcast since we've had it?
Radio Shack, but I think that would be in the not to thank category.
And I do not thank Radio Shack.
I wish you guys go out of business. Watch our magnificent powers. Radio Shack goes out of business within the next year. That's all us.
Jokes on you. Radio Shack will never go out of business.
How can you not believe the Radio Shack is not going to go out of business?
Because it's not out of business yet.
It's going to.
It should have been out of business 15 fucking years ago, and it's not. It's a goddamn cockroach. They're going to evolve to sell some other stupid shit. They moved to cell phones, right? Because it's like, oh, Radio Shack's done. Nobody needs three-way pigtail connectors. And also, boom, they're selling cell phones. And cell phone keeps them afloat. So now they're going to move from cell phones to some other stupid fucking thing that none of us are going to see coming. And every year they're going to say, there always those lists of companies that may not be here in 2016 or whatever.
Sears.
Fucking Radio Shack's the top of that every single year. They win the Siskoid for company not going to be around next year. And guess what? They are always here next year. So, fuck you. Love Radio Shack. I mean, that was as if my sentence was signed by Radio Shack, not that I love Radio Shack. I don't know.
I can't wait to tweet at Radio Shack. Thank you for your subject matter.
Yeah, Radio Shack knows. The guy who has, who leads the
Were you one of the media candy campaign. Computer whiz kids when you were growing up? Is that some secret you've been keeping from us this whole time?
No. Radio Shack sells nothing that I need, but I don't doubt their powers.
I've actually bought most of our equipment from Radio Shack. Like all of our accessory, auxiliary stuff. Things that need to connect to other things.
But they're not keeping that bank open on $3.25 3.5 millimeter headphone jack splitters. You know what I mean? They're selling something. Fix It is still doing a family thing.
I like the family thing. Robert Duvall, James Earl Jones, highly recommend it.
I'm going to take a picture of our podcasting material and send it to him to let him know, what about this family, asshole?
And don't forget to send him a picture of the Siskoid Award.
He's not going to make that out of his cell phone picture. Ooh, look at that. Podcasting, thinking about you. JK, not.
Are we done with this? Are we going to try?
No, who else are we thinking, dude? You need to come up with some shit, too. We've had fucking... How many
No, I'm the one who actually read the fucking materials.
No, but so we've got, what, 20... How many episodes have we done?
Enough. Let the episodes stand on their own merits.
I'm trying to think.
I'm a man of few words, except on every podcast.
Linda Tripp. We need to think Linda Tripp. That's what I'm saying, dude. Go down memory lane, you fuck.
I did that. I edited the fucking annual. Trust me, that was some memories up in my face for a long time.
All right, we'll end it with Linda Tripp. Trust me, I can rant on Radio Shack and how people disrespect the powers of Radio Shack all day long. Really? How they don't win some sort of CEO of the Year award for keeping that fucking shit ship afloat boggles my mind. Instead, they probably just recycle these CEOs. I don't know. I gotta look and see how long they've had their current CEO.
Yeah, I read an article on that recently, and I think they've got a new CEO again, maybe. I don't know.
I wish they'd make me CEO for a year, because it seems like the easiest fucking gig in the world. What happened today? Lost a bunch of money. Cool, keep the fucking steamship going towards that iceberg. And then you know what happens? The iceberg melts.
Such is the power of Radio Shack.
Such is the power of Radio Shack. From the heat from all the fucking phones and bad TVs they sell, it just melts that damn iceberg.